Okay, so you were asking about this constant of proportionality, and I kind of looked over some of the work that you had done, and hopefully I'm going to try and explain it, doing some problems that you've already done, so you kind of already know the answer. But I want to try and explain it so you can understand. Maybe this will help a little bit. If not, you can send me back a question for sure. But here, like, for example, one of the questions you looked at was there's this chart that you have that has like the number of swimmers and then the number of laps that those swimmers swam. Now, when we're looking for a constant of proportionality, which, I mean, it's a really fancy way of saying if this number right here, so the number of swimmers, if it goes up by 1, okay, so if I increase that by 1, how much will this go up by? Okay, now, you might look at it at first and you might be like, okay, will this go up? You might look at it and say, you know what? I am not sure how to do that because I look at this chart and notice that it goes from 18 to 20 or it goes from 14 to 18. There's not one of these where it goes up by just 1. It doesn't go from 18 to 19 or from 14 to 15. Instead, it goes up by weird numbers. But what you can do is you can find out how much it's going to go up by if you were to increase by 1 by doing this. There's 2 steps that you have to follow. And this is a little bit complicated, but hopefully this will make a little bit more sense. Okay? You look at how many, like you look at the top number, you look at 2 different lines. On this line, I take what I'm trying to predict and I write one number, the first number down, and then I subtract the second number from it. So since I'm looking at this line and this line, I subtract those two and I get 24. So 240 minus 216 is 24. Then you do the same thing with the same 2 lines on the number of swimmers. So I go 20 minus 18, that is 2. So the first step on all of these every single time is we do that same thing for both of those. So that's step number 1. Now step number 2 is once you have those 2 numbers, you take the number that you're trying to predict how much it's going to go up by. So I take 24 and I divide that by the change in the number of swimmers. So I do 24 divided by 2 and that gives me 12. That is my constant of proportionality. Again, it's how much your, in this case, number of laps is going to go up by if we increase the number of swimmers by 1. And it's always by 1. It's never a different number. It's always by 1, and we always find it this same way. So here's another one. Again, this is a problem that you did. We've got 20 comics for $5. So Seth purchases 30 comics for $7.50. What is the sale price per comic? So I want to know what the comics are costing. Okay, so I take how much the comics cost at each of these different places. So I go $7.50, that's how much it costs for 30, minus 5. And when I do that, if I put that into my calculator or you figure that out, you get $2.50. Then we do the same thing with the other 2 numbers. So I go 30 minus 20, that gives me 10. So there's my 2 different changes. Then I just take the $2.50, and I divide that by 10, and I get 0.25. And again, I'm skipping over the math portion of it just so that you can see the end result. So you can either use a calculator or however you need to figure that out. But $2.50 divided by 10 gives you 25 cents. So that is the sale price per comic. That's how you figure it out. Again, we want to know how much it's going up each time we buy an additional comic. Not overall. And that's kind of hard to see sometimes. This has a different name that you'll learn about as you get further along in these classes, but for right now, that's what you do there. Now, you'll notice here, as my number of gallons increases by 1. This is a graph. Down here we have the number of gallons. Here we have the number of miles. If I go from 0 gallon to 1 gallon, you'll notice that I changed by 1. Well, when that changes by 1, right here I have 0 miles. Then right here, this is saying I have 60 miles. So in this case, my constant of proportionality is 60. Because when I changed by 1, you could use any 2 numbers. I could do 2 and 3 here. Notice I start at 120. I go to 180. If we want to talk about the way we did it before, I would go 180 minus 120. Because those are the 2 different numbers of miles. I get 60 there. Then I would go 3 minus 2, that's 1. 60 divided by 1 is 60. That's why that answer is what it is on that one. So if I look at this different graph, it's same graph. I meant to put a different one there. Anyway, every single time I would just find 2 points that exist on the graph, always do these values first, and then the values on the bottom second, and then just divide the two, and that will give you the correct answer. Now, I know that was pretty quick. That was just a 5-minute video. Hopefully that kind of makes sense about what the constant of proportionality is. If you have any other questions, just email me back. I'll see if I can explain it differently. I'll also unlock that quiz for you so you can take it again if you want. Thanks. Let me know.